Several years ago, my wife and I were returning from a mission trip in the Philippines, and we stopped for 2 days in Japan. And like we are very familiar with in America, we observed the very well-known custom in Japan of removing our shoes every time we entered someone's house. There's quite an emphasis on cleanliness in much of the Eastern world. And that's one of the reasons in John 13 we read about when people went in someone's house, they washed their feet, or a servant washed someone's feet. In John 13, the scene portrays Jesus washing the disciples' feet. And the Bible tells us that once he completed that he sat down and then he asked them a question. He said, "Do you know what I have done to you?" No doubt there were some curiosities going in their mind, some perplexities as all of this was happening. But then, before they could really answer, Jesus begins to elaborate by saying in verse 13, "You call me Lord and Master, and you do well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet." Now, if we stop right there, it's pretty clear that we would have an obvious command that Jesus' disciples should wash one another's feet. But Jesus wasn't finished talking yet. If you continue on, Jesus says in verse 15, "For I have given you an example. I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you." When Jesus uses that word example, that means this is just one thing that you can do to demonstrate something that's greater. And the something that's greater that Jesus is demonstrating is saying, "I'm your Lord and Master and Teacher, and I have done this for you." The great example that Jesus is trying to tell us and show us is that we are never too big, we are never too good to do something small for someone else. And that's the example that Jesus gives us. I heard a man talking one time about working in a nursing home, and he went into a room of a lady and she asked him, "Would you rub my feet?" And he said, "I did it, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do." But as I began to rub that lady's feet, she began to talk about her husband who had passed away a few years earlier, how he would do this for her when her feet were hurting. And he knew it was a great emotional moment for her. And he was so glad that he had overcome the stigma of rubbing someone's feet and helping her. He was not too big to do something small for someone like that. We should be that way with everyone else. Because in verse 17 of John 13, Jesus says, "If you do these things, happy are you."